Before we get into the episode, we would like to issue a content warning.
Due to the nature of this show, we will be discussing sensitive topics, which could include murder, violence, sexual assault, domestic abuse, animal abuse, elder abuse, alcohol, drugs, racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, ableism, and more. Please take this into account when deciding when, where, and if to listen.
Hello, and welcome to Looking for a Man in His 30s, a Criminal Minds podcast. I'm Emma.
And I'm Sara, and this week we're discussing Season 1, Episode 5, Broken Mirror, which first aired on October the 19th, 2005.
Okay, so first of all, in the podcast, we like to fill you in on a little bit of what we've been doing this week. It's mainly to fill each other in, but at this point, me and Sara have filled each other in on what we've done this week.
Yeah.
3 times. So I'm going to repeat it because I think it would be funny for the audience.
Yeah.
Although Sara may look very bored while I'm talking and be like, yeah, I don't care. I'm sorry that cop told you to stop swearing. I don't care. So the context behind that is that I went to a protest at the weekend. It was a stand up to racism protest because I got a leaflet through my door about UKIP wanting to protest, something about hating immigrants, who knows.
Hey.
I think that's basically all UKIP is.
Yeah.
Weird, we left the European Union because of you fuckers, and you still haven't been like, hey, let's bring up a different thing to talk about. Like, come on, guys. What? We left the European Union, so you had to lean into the racism? Cool. I thought essentially UKIP had been disbanded, rebranded as Reform. Like when My Hermes got all of those negative reviews, so they just rebranded into Every.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was it.
Yeah.
So sadly, UKIP is still around and the far right is still around, and unfortunately they're in my fucking city and I don't want them to be.
Me neither.
So the highlights, if you can call it that, from the protest were the fact that the racist side only appeared to have one megaphone and they just had like one guy in control of it. I don't know, did no one else want to make a speech? It's just you? Because that doesn't really seem like it's a coordinated, organised protest. That seems like it's just angry man's shouts at cloud. And there was a part where I think this guy, when you've been talking for so long, Sara, that you feel like you've lost your mind,
Yeah.
and words aren't making sense anymore and you're just continuing to talk. It's
Yeah.
probably how you feel having recorded this podcast sometimes. But so this guy was shouting into his microphone, "Where are your products made? We don't make things in England anymore." And that's a bit of a confusing thing for, just a racist person. Hey, we don't like immigrants, to be like, yeah, and why are people in different countries making our products? Because they can pay them less. There's lower wages and worse working conditions in some places, so that's why they do it. And he's like, see, this is what I thought and what me and my friends were muttering about. And then this guy just shouts through his megaphone, they can pay people less and they don't have workers' health and safety regulations. That's why we don't make things in the UK. And I have never seen anyone miss the point while simultaneously tripping over it. Yeah, dude, we should make more things in the UK, and the workers of other countries do deserve a fair wage and safe living conditions and safe working conditions. I don't know if you just kind of were speaking and then lost the track of what you were saying, just blah, 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 blah. I'm not sure you think we're on the opposite sides here. I also think people deserve a fair wage and great working conditions.
Yeah.
And then he was like, "You think Keir Starmer is a socialist?" No, next question. Like, no one thinks, oh, Sir Keir Starmer, that's a comrade in arms. So yeah, we're there, and there's a bit at the end which I'm going to tell you. It was basically the fascists had all like fucked off to the pub, you know, because I mean it was gone 12 o'clock.
Yeah.
So basically, they're all going off to the pub, and we're still there chanting, "Can you hear the fascists sing? I can't hear a fucking thing," because they've run off. And this cop comes up to us, like there are loads of police like between us and the far right, and this cop just comes up to us and goes, "Stop the swearing." And you're just like, "Sorry, what?"
Like, that was the worst thing.
Yeah, like, I can excuse racism, but I draw the line at swearing. You can excuse racism?
Think of the children.
Like, oh my god, yeah. It's just a very insane thing to hear someone say.
Yeah.
Like, someone to outright say that they think that us saying the word fuck is worse than someone, you know, chanting about how immigrants are paedophiles.
Mm.
It's like, I think there's one thing worse, and I don't think it's the swearing. I think it's the racism. But sure, why not? But Sara has a much nicer story to tell you, and it's a lot, you know, it doesn't involve racism, it doesn't involve fascism, it doesn't involve the looming threat of the far right.
No.
Go ahead, Sara.
It involves a lovely concert that I went to by myself in Manchester. And Emma, you'll know, but you guys won't know. I'm a huge K-pop fan. I've been since 2012. And one of my favourite groups is a band called SHINee. Now, the youngest member of SHINee, called Taemin, he was doing a solo tour recently. And one of the stops was Manchester, which is a 30-minute drive from my house. So it was a concert I didn't want to miss. So I ended up going by myself because nobody else was available, and I managed to get a resale ticket for half the price. So, yay me!
Woo!
Woo. Well, let me just tell you, it was an amazing concert. He's such an amazing performer, amazing singer, amazing dancer, just all around awesome. And if he ever comes back to the UK, you all should go. Or if you're in America and you're a K-pop fan, please go see him as well. Because he's amazing. Thank you.
Okay, so Sara, wheels up?
Wheels up. So this is where we do an episode recap of the latest episode. So in the opening scene of The Broken Mirror, we see a couple leaving what appears to be a college party. Now, for the UK folks, that's university or uni. And despite clearly drinking at the party, which, why would you drive there if you knew you were drinking? Who knows? The male of the couple is called Jordan. He insists he's okay to drive. And his girlfriend, who we later find out is Trish, or Patricia, jokingly gives him a sobriety test before allowing him to drive. Now, why they wouldn't just get a cab instead of putting their own lives at danger?
Yeah, and other people's lives. Like, they could have hit someone.
Exactly.
I mean, that's not what ends up happening, but
Yeah.
to anyone listening out there who's like, oh, I've got drunk, I don't have the money for a cab, or my parents are going to be really mad at me, I swear they will be less mad at you than they will if you get into a car with someone who is drunk.
Yeah.
They would rather you came home safe
Yes.
than they had an extra 30 quid.
Yeah. So stay safe, guys.
Yep.
Don't drive and drink. No. So Trish and George are in the car. They're all lovey-dovey, as couples are at that age. And Jordan's lovingly looking at Trish, not keeping his eyes on the road. And obviously something's going to happen. You just know it is. And as they're going along, Trish glances at the road and realises a truck is stopped in the middle of the lane. Ends up shouting Jordan to warn him of the impending danger, and then you hear the brakes screeching. The car comes to a stop. The couple exit the car to investigate. On an eerie dark road in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, not creepy at all.
No.
So obviously Trish is very scared at this point, and she begs John to leave the scene. He seems unbothered as he walks round, looking in the abandoned truck that's full of hay bales.
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah, I know, that was very...
Like, you're just so casual about this. Like,
Yeah.
Does this normally happen to you, Jordan?
I know, yeah. But the fact of where they are, and it's night time, and then he sees that the car's empty, surely at that point you'd be like, yeah, I'm getting ahead of it. But
Yeah.
he's quite a while walking around it.
Yeah. You could have just pulled up beside it, checked if there was anyone in there.
Yeah, precisely. But no, they had to leave the car. Anyway, so they eventually both return to their vehicle, and Jordan discovers that the car keys are missing. Why you'd leave your car unattended with the key still in the ignition, I will never know. Anyway, so he's frantically looking for the keys. And at this point, Trish spots a hand appear at the window, behind his head, holding a gun like aimed at him. And then the next camera shot shows the cameras come out, shows the car in the middle of the road with the truck on the side. And we see a flash of light, hear a sound of a gun firing, and the screen fades to black. So in the next scene, we see Reed and Morgan at BAU HQ. And Morgan asks Reed what happened between him and JJ at the Redskins game that Gideon had given tickets to. Reed says it's top secret.
Oh, Sarah. How long do you think they'll keep that secret for?
In episode or two.
I don't think so. It's a little bit longer than that. It's about 14 years.
What?
Yeah. Imagine if I went on a date with someone you knew and then I was like, oh, I didn't tell you about it afterwards. I was like, oh yeah, top secret. And then didn't tell you for 14 years. What would you, like, imagine I had been on a date with someone from our class when we were 21.
Yeah.
And then I'm just like, just tell you now.
Number one, I would have forgotten about it, and number two, I probably would have sensed that something hadn't gone great because you weren't together. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as Morgan and Reed are walking through the office, a few women are flirting with him. Reed says to Morgan that it must be tough that women are just throwing themselves at him. Morgan says, but they're strictly off limits. Reed reminds him that there's no code of conduct to prevent him from socialising with them. To which Morgan replies, my code of survival says never mess with a woman who carries a gun.
Very good advice from Morgan.
That is safe. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Elle heads to Hodge's office, where he's on the phone to his pregnant wife, who is currently on bed rest in the final months of her pregnancy. He's trying to reassure her that all will be okay, and she's clearly fed up. The team then gathers to discuss a new case. The kidnapping of Trish Davenport, who's the woman from the opening scene. They're looking at a letter that had been initially sent to her father. The letter reads, you will follow instructions carefully. You will do this to ensure the safety of your daughter. You will wait for the call. You will answer the call at 8 p.m. You will write down instructions and follow them to the letter. Hodge states that the time mentioned in the letter gives them less than 9 hours to get to Connecticut, work up the victimology on Trish, and prepare her father for the ransom drop. Gideon questions how they know the letter's real. Hodge shows him a computer program which has done a comparison on the handwriting of the letter, which has confirmed that the handwriting is identical to Trish's handwriting. It appears that the kidnapper dictated to her what to write, plus the fact that Celine was found on the paper, which Gideon says, her tears. I don't know about you, Emma, but that comment broke my heart.
Yeah, it really did. That was so sad.
Picture her crying as she's writing it.
Yeah, because obviously she's thinking, am I going to be killed?
Yeah, exactly. Morgan notes that the kidnapper never says I or I will call, so he's apparently distancing himself from the act of kidnapping. Elle notes also that there's no mention of the police in the letter. As she says, ransom notes almost always forbid police involvement. So perhaps the unsub's expecting the police to be involved at some point. And this is where we get the opening credits to the show. And the famous scene of the jet flying through the sky. As Gideon does his opening quote, which this week is, Euripides said, when a good man is hurt, all who would be called good must suffer with him. This next scene is when we're introduced to Trish's dad. His name is Evan Davenport, and he's a US attorney and executive assistant for the Southern District in New York. He's also a widower and has been assigned US Marshals 3 times in the last 10 years for his own protection and that of his family due to death threats. Morgan asks if the protection detail is still current, which Hutch says around the clock. It's also mentioned that Trish declined protection for herself as soon as she turned 18.
I wouldn't have done that.
Yeah, me neither. The team also confirms that Trish's boyfriend Jordan was killed when she was kidnapped, so that was the shot in the opening scene. And they also mentioned that Trish has an identical twin sister named Cheryl. Reed shows a photo of the two of them in cheerleading uniforms, so I presume that's from the high school days.
Yeah.
And Emma, I know you'll have a good transition. So how about this one? So the photo zooms in and then out again to reveal the photo in a frame at the Davenport house. It takes them from the scene on the airplane to the house in one beautiful transition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. So in the Davenport house, the team are talking to Trish's dad, and he says that he's got 6 people on his staff and 3 bodyguards who have all been vetted and they've had polygraphs taken. All have alibis for the night of the abduction, which the local FBI field office have also confirmed. Evan is understandably stressed and worried at this point. Gideon asks Reed what the statistics is telling them so far. Reed says that if Evan gives the kidnapper ransom money and follows the instructions, that his daughter will be returned. An FBI agent confirms that a sweep of the house has been completed and that no bugs have been found in the house and that no wiretaps, no secret recording devices. Evan asks Gideon what his theories are about the kidnapper. Gideon says with certainty that Evan was targeted for a reason. Because the word you was stated in the letter several times, it shows that the kidnapper's angry at Evan, that he feels like Evan owes him something. In a quote from Gideon, that everything you own you don't deserve. Hodge points out the language in the letter indicates that the kidnapper is likely working alone. At this point, Gideon looks at his watch, 4 p.m. I think this scene just purely shows the passage of time and gives the audience an idea of how long there's to go.
Yeah.
A phone call and how long it's been since they arrived there.
Especially because Hotch was like, there's only 9 hours left to do all of this. So they are really running up against a ticking clock.
Yeah, definitely. In the next scene, we see Cheryl lay in the middle of the floor, on the road, not moving, at the scene where the kidnapping took place.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for a second, I thought it was Trish laying dead. But then the agents denote that it is Cheryl and that she's trying to understand what happened to her sister.
Yeah. I don't know that you need to lie in the middle of the road to feel what happened to your sister. I mean, I'm an only child, so maybe I don't know. Would you ever lay in the middle of the road to get a vibe from your sister?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So Morgan and Elle go and talk to Cheryl, and she tells them to hold on a moment before getting up, deep in thought, and stating he dragged her from the car, this is where she fell. Trish is a fighter. She wouldn't have gone quietly. Elle confirms that Cheryl's suspicions are correct, as nail marks were found on the seat of the car. Morgan questions Cheryl if she believes her sister is still alive. Cheryl says she knows she is, and that she can feel if something's bothering her sister or if something's wrong. And in her quote, even from 1,000 miles away at college. The scene then cuts back to the house. Evan reveals that the girls are not entirely identical. They're what you call mirror twins. Whereas some of Trish's organs that should be on the left are on the right. Reid refers to its medical term, situs inversus, which is a congenital non-life-threatening condition in which major organs are reversed or mirrored.
I find that wild.
Yeah, me too.
Thank God it's not us.
Yeah.
At least now I know if there's pain in the left side of my body, that's my heart.
Yeah.
And the awful if it was on the other side, and I was just like, oh, pain in my right side, that's no big deal.
So Gideon mentions that the girls had self-defense training, which Evan said he insisted on, as he was sure that they refused their own bodyguards as soon as they went to college. Reid is now reading a book at speed, which is relatable because I'm also a fast reader. Evan seems puzzled and questions if he can actually read that fast. Reid replies, our conscious minds can process 16 bits of information per second. Our unconscious, however, can process 11 million. With Evan looking even more shocked and confused, Reid confirms, yes, I can actually read this fast. Evan seems concerned that the kidnapper is after him due to his profession, and fears that they want him to blow cases or suppress evidence, or even make him stand down from his job. Gideon questions why he thinks that it's somebody he's prosecuting. Evan replies that while he does have money, he doesn't have millions, and he can't think of any other reason why somebody would target him.
Yeah, and also that does seem like a really compelling case for someone to target you if you're a prosecutor.
Exactly.
And, there are gangs or huge drug dealers or important, influential people who are getting away with stuff with their multinational companies.
Yeah.
Of course, that's the most logical reason. It's not going to be that he got into a dispute with his neighbour over whether or not the tree that leaned over both of their gardens could be cut down.
Yeah.
That would be a really kind of weak thing for it to be like, well, I prosecute all of these drug dealers and these drug kingpins, but really, the person that hates me the most is the woman next door because my dog always craps in front of her house, or my cat craps in her yard.
Nice.
That would be an odd thing.
Yeah.
For it to be that.
Yeah, very much. So Gideon says that from experience, every case is different, so he doesn't know as of yet whether it is somebody who he's prosecuting or
a more personal motive.
Yeah. The scene then jumps back to the location of the kidnapping, with Elle, Morgan, and Cheryl assessing the scene. Morgan's currently role-playing, trying to think like the kidnapper and get a sense of him through his behaviour. Morgan notes that Trish was really without Jordan, and in order to get Trish, Jordan would need to be taken out. In his own monologue, Morgan says, he was collateral damage. Or was he?
Jesus.
He notes that the gunshot was to Jordan's face, so that seems very personal. The kidnapper was desperate to get Trish alone in that case. Reid talks to Evan through answering the phone call when the kidnapper calls. With the team's systems wired up to trace the call and listen in, Reid shows him which buttons to press. So this one's to answer the call, this one's to make everyone in the room go silent. And he tells him that the kidnapper won't be able to hear anybody else. Morgan seems very suspicious of Cheryl's claim that she feels how her sister's doing. Reid interjects saying that there might be a physiological basis for it, and then proceeds to give him what appears to be a biology lesson. As he says, reversed asymmetry in monozygotic eggs split late.
Well done.
Thank you. between 9 and 12 days, and the DNA matches down to the last stranded code. He mentions that there's also sporadic documentation that shows that twins can have shared physiological pain. And this is my favourite quote from Reed in this section. I don't know everything.
Even though you think I do.
Yes.
Yeah, and then Morgan's like, when did I say that? And everyone on the team just snaps back like yesterday, this morning, 2 minutes ago.
Evan and the team are anxiously waiting for the phone call. Gideon reminds Evan to keep his voice even and calm, and to agree with everything the kidnapper says.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, the call's late, and Evan's getting more anxious. Fox tells him that this is what the kidnapper wants. He wants him to be on edge. Finally, the phone rings. Gideon tells him to repeat any important information he's given so that he understands what he's been told, and to try and keep the kidnapper talking so that he reveals something about himself or Trish. Evan finally answers the call and introduces himself and confirms that the man he's speaking to is the guy who has his daughter. At this point, Evan and the team are then confused when the kidnapper says to Evan that he's not the person he wants to speak to. The kidnapper says, I want to talk to her, I want to talk to Cheryl. The call is then muted while Evan asks what the kidnapper's doing. He hadn't been prepared for this. They just assumed he wanted to speak to Evan. They'd sort the ransom drop and all would be done. But Morgan says that he tried to establish dominance, and Hotch is very reluctant to put Cheryl on the phone. Whereas Elle thinks she should speak to him. Morgan's just confused as to why he wants to speak to Cheryl instead of Evan. Evan at this point is also reluctant for Cheryl to speak to him. But Elle keeps pushing the group to allow her to talk, saying that the more he speaks, the more he's going to reveal about himself.
Mm-hmm.
With everyone still reluctant, Elle decides, I'll try and impersonate Cheryl, see if that works.
Mm.
But the kidnapper knows it's not Cheryl, and he gives them 60 seconds to put her on the phone, or he'll hang up and they'll never hear from him or Trish ever again. The team then are forced to quickly prepare Cheryl for the call, as the kidnapper eerily counts down in the background. Elle points out the kidnapper is extremely arrogant and advises Cheryl to let him know that he's in control and to let him guide the conversation. She also tells her to frequently mention Trish's name and talk about her, letting the kidnapper get to know Trish through her. Other advice given was don't veer off topic, agree with him, tell him you understand him, and most importantly, emphasize.
We would not be good at talking to someone who had taken someone hostage. Like, I veer off topic at every possible opportunity.
And I'd just be crying and incoherent.
And I wouldn't be calm, I'd be like...
More advice was let him know that he didn't mean to hurt Trish, or let it go this far, and that he still has time to amend his actions.
Mm-hmm.
Elle tells her that she'll guide her through it once she answers the phone. When Cheryl begins a conversation with the kidnapper, she immediately checks that Trish is okay, while she's fighting back tears and continuously begging to speak to her sister. Trish eventually answers, sounding weak and a bit out of it, saying that she can see the moon. You hear the sound of a door creaking in the background, and Cheryl seems concerned at this point. The kidnapper then comes back on the phone and demands $500,000. He tells Evan and Cheryl to wait by the phone and they will receive another call in 15 minutes, with precise instructions. He then ends the call. Fearfully, Cheryl runs from the room with Evan close behind her. The team discovers that the call could not be traced. Reed says that it must have been using a disposable cell phone, which are impossible to trace. Gideon says that Trish sounded delirious. Reed says that she was probably sedated. Morgan suggests that if he's keeping her drugged, he's likely not to be a strong man. He's keeping her weak in order to dominate her. Or as Elle suggests, he's keeping her quiet. Gideon wants to check that Evans told him everything about his staff. Hotch says that they do have detailed reports on the staff, but that they should probably revisit background info just to be on the safe side. Morgan points out that Trish wasn't blindfolded by the fact that she mentioned the moon. But if she's seen his face, then he may kill her as soon as he gets the money.
Yeah, because she could reveal who he is. So what's the incentive to keep her alive?
Exactly. So the team go through the transcript of the call. Reed points out that the kidnapper's demands sound a bit scripted. But Morgan said the rest of the conversation didn't. He seemed relaxed when he was talking to Cheryl, that suggests he already knows her.
Oh.
Gideon asks Evan how quick he can get the money. In the next scene, we find Elle going into the kitchen to bump into Cheryl, who was pouring a glass of wine, and proceeds to take it off her. Tries to reassure her in preparation for the next phone call, and tells her that she needs to be focused and clear-headed. Cheryl asks her how she can stomach this kind of stuff. Elle says that the men she hunts down are cowards because they only target the weakest members of society. At this point, the phone rings again. The kidnapper demands that only Cheryl will gather and handle the money and make the drop.
I want to know why he's like, only she can handle the money. Like, sorry, you expect a 20-year-old to count out to $500,000?
No, it's like...
Like, you don't even want to let a bank teller or one of the agents do that. You're just like, I get that he's like, I want her to drop it off.
Yeah.
What's he doing? Is he like looking through the money to see whether her fingerprints are on it, and not, the bank teller? As if you would be able to tell that from just looking at a note. That was literally something that drove me insane. I was like, what do you mean only her? She's got to count it. You're not going to get the right money.
So the kidnapper threatens to kill Trish if Cheryl's wired or if they try to use a lookalike in her place. He says that she must travel alone in her car with no surveillance, and that directions will be given her via the cell phone en route, and she must make a drop at exactly 3 a.m. Hotch suggests sending an unmarked car to keep an eye on her. And Reed says that Cheryl's car is a GPS so that it can track her anyway to the drop location. Morgan warns him that she'll be likely directed to switch cars once she gets there. And lo and behold, she's tracked to a rental car lot, which seemingly confirms his suspicion. And at this point, we get a shot of Cheryl's car, which is a bright yellow Volkswagen Beetle. And I did show her the screen.
Yeah, I love it. Although, if I had to choose a car, I would go for a electric blue Mini, because that's the car that Tom Fletcher had in 2004.
Oh, beautiful.
I know.
Morgan and Hotch are seen to have followed Cheryl to the car park and parked up nearby to watch her. Morgan reckons there's a car waiting with keys already in the ignition, ready for her to use once she gets there. But he still feels something's off. Hotch asks him what he would have done differently if he was the unsub. Morgan says, I would have said don't involve the police or the media. $500,000, no consecutive serial numbers on the bills, no marked bills, no new bills, no tracking device in the money bag, no explosive dyes in the money bag, no tracking device in the car. Hotch asks why the unsub didn't say any of this. During this monologue, though, Cheryl's received a call and you see her exit a car, retrieve the money bag, and begin walking across the lot. At this point, Morgan has a sudden realization and says, it was never about the money. Hotch says, it's not a ransom drop, Morgan. It's a second kidnapping. At this point, both rush out of the car and run towards Cheryl, shouting at her to get down. A black car is then seen fleeing the scene, and Hotch and Morgan shoot at its tyres. Back at the Davenport house, they've returned to the house, and the phone rings again. The unsub seems very excited that he's been toying with the team. Cheryl asks him why he's doing this. He alludes that Cheryl has previously flirted with him with her glances and looks. He says that she asked for it. He says he wants her and that one day they'll be together. In the next scene, Gideon says that they can't let Cheryl speak to the unsub anymore. Reed says that it's feeding his psychosis by allowing the interaction to continue. Reed asks if Trish was involved in a serious relationship prior to the kidnapping. Evan mentions Jordan, but refers to him as the boy that was killed.
Like, that is a real dig. If your girlfriend's father refers to you as the boy who was killed when you've been dating her for 2 years
Exactly.
and essentially died because someone wanted to kidnap her.
Yeah.
Like,
I have
just
some
learn his name.
And some Gideon reckons that this could have been the unsub stressor, which Reed agrees with. Evan asks what they mean by this. Reed mentions Declorambolt syndrome, aka erotomania, which is the belief that someone, usually of higher social status, is in love with you.
So, like, mainly celebrities sort of thing, where they're stalking celebrities. Yeah.
And Reed explains at this point, erotomaniacs believe that the objects of their affections are subtly professing their love for them through looks, gestures, glances. Gideon quotes the unsub from the last phone conversation, where he said, "You asked me with your glances."
Ugh.
Reed says that the unsub wholeheartedly believes that Cheryl and Trish are in love with him, and he's completely obsessed with them. Morgan to take lead of the situation, as his speciality is crimes of obsession.
That's a throwback to the first episode.
Ooh.
Yeah, they called back to that, which I'm glad, because a couple of episodes ago they were like, "Hey Morgan, also you were really good at bomb stuff as well."
So Morgan suggests to check everyone on Evan's staff again, against the profile of the stalker. So he's got to be narcissistic, inflated sense of self-worth, with a history of bad relationships.
Sounds like me, to be fair.
And it's at this point we get the profile of the unsub. So he's probably white, he's male, with a sophisticated speech pattern, but really uses contractions. So say the word would, he put would not. He's also pretentious, wants to sound smarter, and had to struggle for whatever position of authority or level of success he has. Hotch warns the team to face the possibility that Trish may already be dead. And Morgan suggests to make the unsub sweat a little, put pressure on him. And Gideon says, "There's only one way to do that." And the phone rings again. Now Gideon answers the phone and puts the phone down a number of times. And Cheryl and Evan at this point are panicking, which is understandable, because they think that the unsub's going to harm Trish if they continue to like purposely Riley.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. He loves riling them unsubs, doesn't he?
Oh, Gideon. One day this isn't going to work for you, dude.
No.
One day you're going to fuck around and find out, and it will be some poor woman that gets killed because of you.
Legit.
Oh.
So after a third time of putting the phone down, the unsub shouts down the phone that Trish is dead and he threatens to rip her open. Gideon once again puts the phone down. And he tells Evan, when questioned, that he's saving his daughter and to have faith. Which...
That's a big ask.
So... the phone again. The unsub demands to touch Cheryl. But Gideon says, you're done talking to her. No more. And the unsub tries to antagonize him by calling him by his first name. And then begins profiling the whole team. To show them that he knows them and prove how smart he is.
Yeah, he's like, Elle was promoted too fast. Spencer's autistic.
Yeah.
Which, also, like, Spencer has been coded as neurodivergent. I believe that Matthew Gugula, who plays Spencer, I believe that at some point he said Spencer has probably got undiagnosed. He uses Asperger's, but the term is autism spectrum disorder.
Yeah.
Because autism is a spectrum, and I I'm pretty sure that the person who Asperger's is named after is a Nazi.
Yeah,
So,
I've heard that.
autism spectrum disorder.
Yeah,
But yeah, so you do see that quality in Spencer where he's got limitations or difficulties with interpersonal relationships.
Yeah.
And with I don't feel we've seen it yet, but he does go, "Oh no, I don't shake hands" at some point.
yeah,
And obviously him being incredibly advanced, getting into the FBI and into the VAU at 23.
yeah.
Because generally you have to be 25 maybe to actually join the FBI. Might be 23.
Yeah.
And you're required to serve at least 10 years as an agent before being allowed to join the BAU in real life.
Okay.
I mean, obviously it's not particularly real life because also they don't have a jet. I don't know why I started that bit of diatribe. It's probably because I am also autistic. So I'm just like, oh yeah, Spencer's autistic. He's coded as it. Never mind. Go ahead.
So whilst antagonising and profiling the whole team, the kidnapper says, "I know what to do next, do you?" Evan asks if the unsub is actually going to hurt Trish. Gideon claims that he was grandstanding. And now worked up more than ever, Evan says that he couldn't possibly know that. To which Gideon replies, "Mr. Davenport, I've learned more in the last 5 minutes than in the last 24 hours.
Aww.
Evan questions why the unsub is now more focused on Gideon. Morgan tells him it's because that Gideon's interfering with his relationship with the girls. Reed says, "Oftentimes the best profilers are the unsubs themselves. They're the ones that are able to walk into an arcade full of children and pinpoint the boy or girl that can be let out quietly."
That's unsettling.
Bit creepy there, Reed, but he does have a good point.
Yeah.
That they are able to work out who's the best person to attack.
Victim. Oh,
Creepy.
yeah.
Elle says, though, that the unsub's made a mistake, that he's given him something that he didn't expect. How to find it.
I mean, I'm not getting that at all, but maybe that's because I'm not an FBI agent.
Went over my head. I was like, when she said it, I was like,
What?
Evan's now angry with the team, and his staff are trying to calm him down. But the team reckon that the unsub is one of them, an agent. So they devise a plan to get Cheryl to a safe house and limit the number of agents that she comes in contact with. Next scene, Cheryl's seen exiting the house wearing an FBI jacket and cap, followed by Morgan, Elle, and a couple of the agents, and they head into black SUVs and drive off.
Yeah, I don't get this. Why, if you think it's one of the agents that's protecting her, do you go, okay, we'll take 2 agents to the house? Like,
Yeah.
hey, who's going to volunteer to look after the girl we're scared of being kidnapped? Who's going to volunteer for that? Perhaps the kidnapper?
They didn't think that one through, did they?
Yeah, I would have been like, let's just take Morgan and Elle, you know.
Just be on the safe side. So they arrive at the safe house, and Elle and Morgan head inside with Cheryl while the other agents assess the perimeter of the house. Elle's talking to Reed on the phone at this point and asks him if he knows what non-local interaction is. The scene then cuts to Morgan splashing his face with water in the kitchen. Back to the Elle and Reed phone call. Elle asks Reed how the unsub can be holding Trish prisoner, but at the same time still know what the team is discussing. And they conclude that there must be a listening device at the Davenport house. But Reed says that the FBI agents swept the house of bugs when they arrived. So, seems confused by the suggestion. But then Elle reminds him that once they'd done the sweep, they brought in their own equipment.
Oh.
Big mistake.
Yeah.
At this point, one of the agents at the safe house, Agent Shire, as we learn, enters Cheryl's room and exhales sharply and says, "It's good to finally get you alone."
Ugh.
Shit. So the scene goes back to the Davenport house, where the team frantically searching equipment for devices. Gideon points out to Evan that Agent Shire originally called him by his first name when he entered the house, and asks if he knows him well. Evan says that he knows he works out of the New York field office and that Agent Shire knows his father. Evan and Shire have met a few times socially. Gideon asks if he's visited the house before, and Evan says, yeah, a few times. The scene then cuts back to the safe house, and we see a cell phone ringing on the floor. And as the camera pans out, we see there's an unconscious Morgan beside him. Agent Shire then pulls out a knife and walks towards Cheryl, asking her if it annoys her that people want to put her and Trish side by side to examine their differences.
No, sorry, that's not something that people regularly ask twins. Like, I have known quite a few sets of twins throughout my school life. I've absolutely never been like, hey guys, can you just stand together and I'll just point out the differences between you?
Cheryl retreats further at the bed as Shire approaches, and he states, I've known you both for so long, loved you for so long. Cheryl begs him to stop. At this point, Elle creeps into the room unnoticed behind Shire, aiming her gun at him and telling him to put the knife down. Shire then attacks Elle, but he loses his knife in the process. Elle fends him off and pushes him to the floor with the gun still aimed at him. At this point, she firmly places her foot in his crotch and asks where Trish is. Now, if this is the baddest boss move, I'm proud of it. In the next scene, sirens are blaring as Evan, Cheryl and the team have found Trish. EMTs are wheeling her out of a building and into an ambulance. Reed asks Gideon how Elle managed to persuade Shire to give up Trish's location. Gideon says, I imagine she found some creative way to persuade him.
Yeah.
Gideon then does his closing quote, which is, Euripides said, when love is in excess, it brings a man no honour, no worthiness. Now we're on the final scene of the episode. They're back at HQ, and Morgan is seen putting a wound dressing on his side. Yes, I did realize that.
Yes, he is a very attractive man, and he does get his top off a lot in this role.
God bless Shimamo.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, we find out he was tasered back at the safe house.
Oh.
Absolutely bless him. Yeah. Morgan tells Elle that Shire didn't see her as a threat, which was his own mistake. Elle offers him to take some of the paperwork that he's going through, and they both spend a late night together. Yeah.
Okay, so that's the episode recap done. Now we move into our episode discussion segment, and we've got a few interesting points here. So this episode didn't have JJ, even though AJ Cook was credited, and it's the only episode where Penelope Garcia, the Supreme Goddess, does not appear. It's very sad, but if you are a Garcia stan like me, don't worry, this is the worst it gets. She's in every other episode.
Oh, that's okay.
Me and Sara have been kind of making a note of where the episode title is mentioned in the episode. Yeah. This one, it's not mentioned, but the title does come from Mirror Twins, which is, as we said, where sometimes they have things reversed, like handedness. One twin would be left, one would be right. Birthmarks at the same space but on opposite sides of their body, and sometimes even organs. And I think that the broken mirror refers to the fact that the twins are separated. You don't know where Trish is for the majority of the episode, so it's like their relationship has been broken in that way. There's also no wheels up scene, which is sad because, you know, me and Sara like to start every episode with wheels up. And they don't do it. So sad. And there's no return jet scene either. Although they do get back to DC. Like, Morgan is in the BAU HQ when he is taking his shirt off. This is the first of 2 episodes in season 1 that feature erotomania as a motive for the crime. That's exciting. The next one is the second episode that features this. It's actually one of my personal favourites. Sorry. So notable guest stars. If you know Agent Shire from anywhere, it's probably it's Matt Lechka, and he is in The Flash and Legends of Tomorrow, which my parents are big fans of the entire. It's called a universe, isn't it? The entire comic book universe. I think that's DC, right?
No.
I am not a comic book fan, so I have no idea. Now, the dad, he's played by Robin Thomas, and all throughout this episode, I was like, I know that guy. Where do I know him from? And I looked at his IMDb, and there's like he's worked a lot. Like he's got a lot of credits.
Yeah.
But like it's all things that I either haven't seen or he's been in like one episode of, and I'm like, I don't know that that was enough to make an imprint on me. That like he's in one episode of, say, Grey's Anatomy. And then I got down to the kind of early 2000s range, and he played Calabar in Halloween Town 2: Calabar's Revenge. And every October, I make a note of trying to watch Halloween-themed movies, like one a day. So I've seen Halloween Town 2 about 20 times. So that would be how I know him, because it was always played on the TV when I was a kid. You know, like, because I think that was the week that we didn't have Disney Channel, but I think the week of October half term was when they, whatever cable company we had was like, hey, we'll leave you Disney free for a week and see if you want to upgrade to it. So I think it was always Halloween half term, and so they'd be playing Halloween Town. And the twins, Sarah noticed this, not me, but it's Elizabeth Rose Hanois, and she plays Morgan Brody in its CSI.
And I'm as a big CSI fan, the second I spotted her, I knew it was Morgan.
That's incredible. I've actually never watched CSI. Do you know that?
No.
It's insane because me and Sarah, between us, consume quite a lot of medical and police procedural shows.
Yeah, quite a lot.
Like, I think it's us keeping 5 USA in operation.
Pretty much, I'd say,
Yeah. So now we're getting to the section where it's our baby girl / pretty boy of the episode. This is the most valuable player in the episode, and we call them baby girl and pretty boy because those are Morgan's terms of endearment for Garcia and Reed. I think that baby girl might have come up yet, but I don't know that pretty boy has.
Yeah,
I actually thought it was in the next episode, LDSK, but it wasn't, and I was like, oh. So I'm gonna try and find out what episode it is that he first.
It'll appear at some point.
Boy. So the person we have chosen for this episode as the baby girl will come as not a surprise to anyone that has listened to the podcast before, because we have a slight obsession with Elle Greenaway.
Yes.
She has been our baby girl of the episode 3 times.
Yeah.
We have done this podcast for 5 episodes. In one we picked JJ, and in one we picked a side character who didn't even have a first name in the episode. They were just Mrs. Whatever. And we gave her a name. I think it was Tanya, but I'm not sure.
Rings a bell, but I'm not 100% sure either.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Tanya, because when I looked at her, I thought she kind of looked a bit like Tanya Harding, but I might be wrong. I might have just imagined that in my head. So anyway, yeah. Our baby girl for the episode is Elle. The people I go after are cowards. They often prey upon the weaker members of society, such as women and children. There is nothing I would rather do than put the bastards away. Yeah. That's proper badass motherfucker.
Yes, and she's the ultimate girl boss. So,
Exactly.
God bless her, really.
So, I don't know if we'll ever decide that a man is the most important member of the
Who
team.
knows? We might choose next week. Maybe.
Might choose someone next week. Sarah and I have already watched the episode, so I do think that we are still in alignment, but we're going to save that for the next recording.
Yes.
Okay, so now we're into our true crime recap.
Yes. So Emma, it's time to deliver the profile.
Okay, so first of all, I saw because I was looking up what crimes this could be related to. As listeners know, we always do a true crime recap because my Aunt Rosie, who watches Criminal Minds with me and was one of the, she was the driving force between the driving force for me watching it. She always says these must be based off real crimes. I can't believe that the writers would just be able to think up something that twisted for themselves. And I think we have not had an episode yet where we haven't figured out the people we think it's based off. So first of all, the bit about the twins like trying to evade their bodyguards, essentially the agents in charge of protecting them, refusing agent protection when they turned 18. That I saw on Reddit, someone was linking that to the Bush twins. That's Jenna and Barbara Bush, who are the daughters of George W. Bush. They apparently also had a habit of kind of trying to evade the Secret Service in order to just be regular teenagers, you know. So thankfully, that is where the comparison between the episode and the Bush twins ends, and they have never been stalked by a Secret Service agent to my knowledge. The first crime, where you see Jordan getting shot in the car, that was reminiscent to me of the Zodiac killer, shooting couples in cars, but we're going to get onto the Zodiac killer in a later episode, and it's a full-on arc. So, are you prepared for that, Sarah?
Yes.
So, the crime that I think that this episode is based on is the murder of Marion Parker. She was abducted from school in 1927 by a man who claimed to work for her father and said he'd been in a car accident, and the father was asking to see Marion at or maybe at the hospital, maybe somewhere else, who knows. So this receptionist at the school, Mary Holt, she didn't do any due diligence, like asking what hospital the father is at, or, you know, what job does he do? If you can confirm his name, then I'd be happy to let the kid leave with you. And also, one glaring point that I cannot believe that she would have just left. Why is he only asking for one of his kids?
Yeah.
Like, I get that I'm an only child, but I don't think if anyone who had more than one kid was in the hospital, they'd be like, oh, I'd only like to see my favourite kid.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, they're asking for all of their kids or none of their kids.
Yeah.
And in case you're thinking, oh, wow, well, Marion's brother is older. Maybe he wasn't at the same school. She had a twin. She had a twin sister who was not taken out of school. I'm sorry, absolutely no one is going, I'm in an accident, it's bad, I want to see my kids, and then being like, just one of the twins. Like, they're 10. You're asking for both or none of them.
Yeah.
And Holt said, oh, I wouldn't have let Marion go, but this guy was just so disarming, and suave and charming. And it's like, sorry, what?
Xanax.
Like, I get you don't have phones, but like, at least like have a system where you, God, it's just so wild because I can't. You know, nowadays when kids are picked up from school, it has to be like by someone who is named on the database. Like,
Yeah.
these are the 3 people who could pick my kid up from school. If it's anyone else, don't let them go.
Yeah, like the younger kids generally have like a password that you have to give together.
Yeah. Oh, well, I didn't know that, but I'm happy about that. So yeah, she just went, okay, I'll pull Marion out of class, and there you go, have fun. So this guy then sends about 5 telegrams over the course of really, I think, a day and a half to Marion's father, Perry. The kidnapper is demanding $1,500 in gold certificates, which is about $27,000 in today's money. And he's signing these ransom letters: fate, death, the fox. Like, I get that the kidnapping is the worst part of the thing he's done so far, but it's also insufferable that you're giving yourself like a cool nickname. Like, fuck off, dude. Who do you think you're trying to impress? Like, it genuinely feels like something like scene kids would have used as their screen name in like MSN Messenger. And also the letters, because the telegrams are still being written at this point. It's not really, well, they do have typed telegrams, but this one is written. It appears to be written by Marion. Also, it occasionally uses new terminology, such as do nothing until you receive second telegrams. The first ransom drop failed because the kidnapper saw the cops were watching. So just like in the episode, but the kidnapper still arranged a second ransom drop, which, I mean, do you think the cops aren't going to be involved in the second one?
Yeah.
Unclear, because obviously you'll get this a lot in the crimes we cover, but criminals, serial killers, they're not smarter than most people. They're not like so smart that they could get away with it.
Yeah.
They're really just dumb, and it seems like there's just a lot of luck behind it.
Yeah.
So the second ransom drop, Marion's father, Perry, came to drop off the money. He saw Marion in the kidnapper's car, and she was wrapped in blankets. And he described it like she was drugged, because she was just kind of staring off into space almost. Just like she wasn't looking around for him. She wasn't crying out the window. So he thinks that she's been drugged with something. Once the kidnapper had the gold certificates, he shoved Marion from the car and sped off. But unfortunately, Marion was dead. She had been disarticulated, which means that her limbs had been cut off, and disemboweled, which means that her abdomen was cut open and her organs removed. So just like in the episode where he threatens to cut Trish open. It gets worse, but I'm going to save you those. I'm going to spare you that. You can look it up if you want. Her limbs were found the next day wrapped in newspaper by just like a local guy who was just like walking with his dog. There was a nationwide manhunt launched. They offered $100,000 for identification or capture of the killer, dead or alive. And while, you know, wanted dead or alive is, you know, a fairly common thing that you'd see, like, in the 1800s and early 1900s, I am glad that they don't do it today, because you could just kill someone and be like, yeah, they killed Marion.
Yeah.
Like, how are they going to prove that you're wrong? So, yeah. Luckily, William Hickman, a 19-year-old former co-worker of Mr. Parker, was arrested 5 days later after he tried to use some of the gold certificates to buy clothes in Seattle. See what I'm talking about? Dumb. They're not clever. They're evil people, and you can't excuse how absolutely evil they are with just, yeah, but they're so smart. No, they're not. They're just getting lucky if they're getting away with things. So Holt, who was the receptionist, she managed to identify Hickman as the man who had taken Marion away, and the police matched his fingerprints to those left on the abandoned getaway car, which he had also stolen earlier before the ransom drop-off. Now, Hickman tried to blame 2 other men, but police determined that he was lying because those men were in prison at the time that Marion was abducted and killed. Like, they're literally in a prison cell, and you're like, yeah, it was definitely them. They were there. I just kind of went along with it. Like, they're in prison. They weren't with you. Why are you specifically naming 2 people, and you don't even know that, you don't even have evidence that they were out of prison at the time? That's so dumb. Dumb. His motive, Hickman's motive for the abduction and murder, is likely that Perry exposed a scheme Hickman was running where he was forging checks and essentially stole $400. And that's about 8,000 or 9,000 in today's money. And I don't think that's enough to kill over. Like, I don't think any amount is enough to kill over. But I do think that, like, if someone had said, oh yeah, like, I killed them, but I did get $9,000, I'd be like, okay, but how is that going to help? Like, the $9,000 isn't going to, like, set you up for life. The $400 isn't going to set you up for life. What's your plan? Are you going to get a normal job after this, or are you just going to keep abducting people? Anyway, so it seems more like revenge than actually caring about the ransom, because why would you ask for it in gold certificates as opposed to cash, which would be easier to get away with spending? I'm not trying to tell kidnappers how to kidnap better. I'm saying don't kidnap. It's wrong. You're going to get caught, and you're dumb. The defense lawyer tried to have Hickman found not guilty by reason of insanity, which was a new plea in California at the time, but he was sentenced to death. And I am, in general, against the death penalty because I don't think it's a deterrent, and I don't entirely think that, you know, an eye for an eye is justice. It is more revenge. But I'm not going to be sad about a man who in the 20s killed a small child. I'm not going to be like, oh wow, that's so bad. Poor guy. Good job we don't have the death penalty anymore. Good job we don't have the death penalty anymore, at least in the UK. I know you do have it in some places in the US. But yeah, good riddance. Good riddance to Hickman. So there is erotomania that was mentioned as part of the episode. And although I do believe the crime was based on the Marion Parker case, I do want to tell you a little bit more about erotomania. And it's one of the most famous cases of erotomania. And I mean, I'll admit, it's not a pleasant thing, but it is a lighter reading than, you know, murdering a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
So John Hinckley Jr. attempted to assassinate US President Ronald Reagan in 1981 to impress Jodie Foster, who he'd become obsessed with after watching her in Taxi Driver. She was 12 at the time, so already not a great start. Hinckley wounded Reagan police officer Thomas Delahanty, Secret Service agent Tim McCarthy, and White House Press Secretary James Brady. Brady was left disabled and died 33 years later from his injuries. Also, not to praise Reagan or anything, because as Sarah knows, I've never once said anything positive about Ronald Reagan. I've also never once said anything positive about Margaret Thatcher.
Yeah.
So the one thing I will give Reagan credit for is after someone attempted to assassinate him and, you know, injured other people, killed someone else, essentially, he did tighten the gun laws. So, I mean, if there are any US presidents, for instance, listening to this, you know, ones that might have been the victim of an assassination attempt in the past, should we say like 8 months?
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe you could also tighten the gun laws. You know, I've never said this before, but be more like Reagan. I'll never say it again, but you know, take some advice from Ronald Reagan. So Hinckley was found not guilty by reason of insanity, and he was placed in psychiatric care until 2016, when they deemed him to not be a threat anymore. And as far as we know, he's not done anything to violate his parole. So that's good.
A bonus.
I'm glad he's not shot anyone else. I'm glad he's hopefully not stalking any teenagers or children. So I'm not entirely sure it's a light moment, but it is a sort of insane moment, is that Hinckley now has a YouTube channel for his music. And I'm sure you're thinking, wow, I'd really like to know what music the an attempted assassinator makes up. I can't tell you because I honestly haven't listened. I don't think I will, you know. But he's also got painting and poems, and I'm not interested in looking it up, but you can, and it's at least bizarre enough to pass for good, as opposed to the depressing bit that was my part this episode. So now we're going to move on to what would Penelope Garcia do? This is the segment in the podcast where we link people with resources that can help them. You know, a hotline in case you're affected by any of the issues raised. Maybe a petition that needs signing. Something you can write to your elected representative. A charity that could use some extra funding. And this time we've decided that because the girls were stalked, we're going to link to a stalking helpline. So, Sarah, you go first.
So, for people in the UK, there is a website in which you can access information, which is victimsupport.org.uk. On this website, there's advice on what to do if you find you are a victim of stalking. There's signposting to other agencies who will help you and give you advice. There's a 24/7 free live chat available also. And there's a support line that you can call, which is 0808 168 9111. Also, there's a national stalking helpline, which is funded through gov.uk. And that phone number is 0808 802 0300. The lines for that helpline open 9:30 a.m. till 4 p.m. Monday to Friday, although on Wednesdays it does close later at 8 p.m. Both of these phone numbers are free phones, so it won't cost you anything to ring from a landline or a mobile. And Emma, I believe you have the US resources.
Yes, I do. So, as we know, me and you, and possibly the listeners as well, stalking very rarely ends at stalking, and quite often the people who are victims of stalking are being stalked by someone they know. Maybe it's an ex-partner, maybe it's even a current partner, or say someone that you know, someone you work with. So for that reason, I'm going to share two different hotlines. So one is it's a national hotline for the US, and it will help put you in touch with local service providers, because obviously there's going to be a hotline for California, a hotline for New York, a hotline for Texas, etc., etc. So if you don't know how to reach your local service provider, or you want additional assistance, you can contact the Victim Connect hotline. It's 1-855-484-2846. And I will also be linking the National Domestic Violence hotline, because stalking generally either precedes or follows intimate partner violence, because, as I said, a lot of the times women especially are being stalked by a partner or ex-partner. So the National Domestic Violence Hotline is 1-800-799-7233.
Please get in touch with your local police departments as well.
Yes.
Feel that you're in immediate danger.
Yes, if you feel like you're in immediate danger, you need to ring 999 if you're in the UK and 911 if you're in the US.
Now that's all for this week, but come back next week when we'll be talking about Criminal Minds Season 1, Episode 6, LDSK.
While you're waiting for the next episode, why not follow us on social media? We're on Instagram at Looking for a Man in His 30s, Tumblr at Looking for a Man in His 30s, or you can email us at lookingforamanhinhis30s@gmail.com.
And you can also rate and review us on whichever platform you're using to listen to the podcast. It really helps more than you know. Until next time.
This case is closed.